Oh, gosh, hello, hello. I hope everybody can hear me okay. I hope everybody can see me okay, because that's what we tend to say when we're on a call, and this feels more like a call than a telling y'all what to do stream. I like to ask folks a little tiny icebreaker question when we start. So, folks who are joining us live, or if you're watching this asynchronously, that's not a problem. You're still involved. We'd love to hear about this in Discord. What are you most excited to try and build? So we're going to be developing our web skills together. What kind of silly or serious things would you like to build once we've got our web skills up a little bit? For me, I do a lot of searching online for like ethical or hopefully just less evil tech jobs to share with people. And yeah, usually I've been sharing it on social media, but I really want to redo my website and redo my blog. So you all getting to do some HTML and CSS with me is giving me a really good opportunity to rebuild my sort of skills a little bit, refresh, and y'all getting to work on things should give me the motivation to get that finished. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Today, we are going to be working on HTML for the very first time. I'm going to go ahead and drop the link that we're working from into chat. And just to remind you, whenever you need to know, do we have a guest? What kind of solo work do I need to have ready? Are sometimes you'll hear people say single source of truth in tech. So where's the one place you can look to find everything? We're always going to put everything on the website. And that's because you can sign up to get weekly emails from us, or you can join us in Discord. But we wanted to make sure that you don't have to sign up for anything to get the information from us. Cool. In the chat, we've got Lucia saying, "Oh, I want to rebuild some of my old projects." When I asked, "What do we want to do with our skills?" And I love this. So going back and fixing up old projects is one of my favorite things to do as we expand our skills. We've got somebody in the chat sort of saying, "Hey, hey, hey, we see the cat tree behind me. Where's the cats?" If we hang out long enough and learn together long enough, you will get to see my very bad cats. If y'all can please just shout at me in the chat if you see them doing bad things. So you're familiar with this. Before our session, we asked if you've got the time, can you please try to work through the build a curriculum outline and write down any notes. So take notes, not just on the theory ones, but take notes about the exercises as well. And we'll look at this together. Try and debug Camperbot's profile. And one thing I'm really excited about is debugging. Does anybody know, and is anybody not shy, does anybody know where the term debug or a bug came from? We'll look at it in our notes, but when we're talking about debugging, we're trying to remove all of the bugs from our code, and we talk about bugs as like errors or problems. We've got someone else who said they did a crash course a couple years ago and made some websites for friends, but they want to go back and refresh that experience. And so for folks who are doing a refresher, the HTML stuff, you'll probably work through this pretty fast. Be nice to folks who are doing this. Not me, be nice to everyone. Be nice to folks who are doing this for the first time because it's going to feel a lot harder for them. Together, we're going to work through these two exercises. And generally, we're not going to work through all the steps of an exercise together because this is the first time writing HTML. We'll do a bit more than we usually should. Generally, we'll discuss our notes, we'll answer questions as you go, and we might look at a couple of really difficult topics, or we might try and write that code somewhere else. Yeah. And then we've got some solo work for after the session. So please try and complete this on your own. We've got some reading and note taking as well. So let's dive into. Um, oh gosh, we've got somebody saying that they want to learn web development in order to change careers, and that's so exciting. It's hard but wonderful. I see somebody who knows why debugging and bugs are called bugs. So I'm going to save that and we'll get to it when we talk about it. So let's look. first at our notes that I've taken, and y'all go ahead and yell at me if you've got any questions as we go. But we're going to look at our notes here, and then we're going to work through this exercise together if that's okay. So the first thing I took notes about is, oh, let's make this a little bit bigger. A little bit bigger again. Oh gosh, that's quite big. The world is hard enough without trying to strain our eyes. Oh, that's also good. I'm going to say, so 2 people so far have known what debugging, where that term came from. So I'm going to save it so I can brag on your knowledge. So first things first, we're going to be writing some HTML today. What is HTML? So some folks will say that HTML is a programming language. Some people will say that HTML is not a programming language. There's a concept in programming called Turing completeness, which we don't need to know about now. And that's often what people use as the definition of a real programming language. But we are the most laid back people possible. We're not worried about that. Strictly speaking, HTML is a markup language, and HTML, Bruce, our guest for the launch party, said it stands for How to Make Loveliness. It stands for Hypertext Markup Language. Okay, cool. And this is the language we're going to be writing today, and this is the language that we use on the web to build the structure and to build the content of our web pages. HTML, overall, as a language, is made of a bunch of different elements. That makes sense. And these are units of HTML that we can use to build the structure and the content of our website. I like to think of these as the Lego blocks you can kind of click together to make the website of our dreams. And these elements are often made of 2, sometimes just 1, bracketed tags. So these angle brackets will enclose a tag or an opening and closing tag that make up your HTML elements. Seems okay? Yeah, things are all right. And what we're going to look at, the first HTML element made of 2 HTML tags that we're going to look at is the heading tag. And y'all have done this before me, so this is just going to be reviewing. We're going to see the H1, H2, and H3 tags making up the H1, H2, and H3 elements. Cool. Let's dive in. Let's do this together. We're going to start coding. Oh, gosh. I'm afraid I've already done this once. Oh, heck, give me just a second. Everything is stressful, but everything is fine. I just have to get things moved over. There we go. You should be able to see this. We can see it? Fantastic. And let's make this a little bit bigger. So this is the first time we've used our in-browser code editor from FreeCodeCamp. The first thing I'd warn is up here in the top corner, you've got to make sure you're logged in. Yeah. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to find line 1 in our editor. And here, line 1 in our editor. And we're going to type this text. So the hard question is this is this HTML? Have we written any HTML so far? Okay. I don't think so. We need those angle bracketed tags and we need elements. Right now, we still have just text. I bet we're going to HTMLify it in a minute. So, oh, we've got folks asking if they should be doing this along with us. You can, but strictly speaking, you're going to get the most out of this if you do it on your own before. But this lesson is going to be a little bit slow, so we can do it together. One thing I think is really important is we're going to look at what the FreeCodeCamp coding environment looks like. Up here, we've got some different tabs. We've got our instructions, which we can take away if we wanted to, bring it back. And we've got our index.html. Yesterday, we talked about how websites are built of are made of different files and the content of those files. Yeah, here we're writing this in the browser, but we're thinking about it as though we were writing it in an index.html file on our computer. And over here, all the way on the side, we've got a preview. So we wrote, welcome to Free Code Camp. It says, welcome to Free Code Camp. Here, we've got some different options. We can check our code. We can get some help. Gosh, and here, the help, I like this a lot. So Free Code Camp has a philosophy, which is read all of the instructions. So read, search, ask. Read all of the instructions. Cool, cool, cool. Search for it online using your favorite web search engine, and then ask. So cool. I've read all the documentation that's given here for the problem. I've thought about it and I can't work out the problem. Ah, I've looked for it online and I can't find an answer. I'm going to ask then. I love Free Code Camp's teaching approach. Yep. So if folks want to do this along with me, heck yeah, come along and do it along with me. I'd love that. I'd add one more thing, and it's not going to be as useful yet, but when we start doing more advanced stuff like building things, I'd add one more thing to the read, search, ask method. So I like the read, search, ask, read, search, get weird, ask. So read about it. Okay. Search online, see if you can find an answer to your problem. And if you can't, just try experimenting with some weird stuff. Yeah, I see a really good question, and I'm going to save that about where AI fits in with getting help. I've got a very opinionated answer, so we'll get to that in just one second. And then, if reading things and searching for things and experimenting and didn't work, come and ask someone in Discord, or we've got the Free Code Camp forum as well. We've got, and folks, go ahead, please do drop questions in. For questions that are a little bit chunkier, I'll save them for in between sessions at the end of the session, just so folks who are watching this in a replay have a good, really good flow. Great. And we've got somebody asking, okay, but where does AI fit in here when getting help? So I'm not against AI. I would strongly encourage you. So first of all, I'm not your boss. I'm not your mama. I can't tell any of you what to do. You're all grown-ups. Please, please, please do not use LLMs to write your code for this course. They'll create code quickly. Some of the code might pass the tests, but the problem here is what we really want out of this course is for you to deeply understand what's going on. And that's not going to happen if you're using LLM generated code to pass these tests. I also really discourage folks from using AI to ask it questions. I just spent the last 3 years working on open data that's used in AI and machine learning. So worked quite a bit with them. I find that the way LLMs are structured and what they do, they're not actually that smart, but they're very confident. So if you say, hey, big LLM tool, explain to me what a void element means. What it's going to do is it's going to go out onto the model it's built, and the model has been built on all of the different text it's seen across the web or stolen from books. And some of that information is very wrong, and it's going to give you wrong information very confidently. There's a bunch of research coming out around how AI use in learning helps or hurts. And I am reading a bunch of the research right now. I'd go ahead and strongly discourage, especially beginners, from using it too much. Or if you can, just don't use it at all, because you're going to get a lot more value out of getting weird and experimenting than you will just having something spit out the right answer or what it thinks the right answer is right away. Ready to check our code? That's a problem. I'm going to come back to the notes for just a second. I forgot that I'm using my very own account, and I've already done this. So what I need to do is I need to go back and delete my progress so that I don't show you the answers before we do it. I'm really sorry. Give me just a second. It's a little unfair to make you wait. Thank you all very much for waiting patiently. I'm coming back. Everything's fine. All right. So here's what we're going to build. We can do this. This isn't going to be a problem. Here's what we've just done. Welcome to Free Code Camp. And the way we do this is we check our code. And this feels so good, doesn't it? I really like that they built this in. It gives us a good job. Your code passes. And this is interesting. We'll talk about this. You pass the tests for whether or not this is accurate. Love it. We're going to continue. And it tells us we're 9% complete with this bit of the course. Cool. HTML is made up of elements, and those are the elements in those angle brackets, which we don't have yet. Okay, let's get those elements in those angle brackets. Everything's fine. So I'm going to type H1 here. And what we've got right here is we've got an opening tag. This is our opening tag for our H1 element. And we're going to come to the end, and we're going to create a closing tag. Oh, heck. Y'all might have noticed that I did this wrong. Let's look at this a little bit. So an H1 is a heading, and we're going to learn more about why headings are important, why we have H1, H2, H3, and what the differences are. But right now, this is the heading on our website saying, welcome to Free Code Camp. All of this on line 1 is one HTML element, our H1 element. And this H1 element has two H1 tags, the opening one at the start and the closing one that has that backslash. Cool. How does that feel? And we see when we added this H1 that, let's go back in time. Oh, come here. Okay. Let's go back in time. We saw this is really small text. Oh, heck. Oh, heck. And there are many, many difficult problems in web development and in programming. And for me, one of the biggest is trying to type when other people can see you. Here, heck. Here, what we've got is we've moved from having just text shown in our preview to a heading 1. Nice. I'm going to check our code again. And I think we're going to, oh gosh, Dan is making a really good point about headings. And I'm going to save this and come to this in just a second. So we're going to check our code. And we've got that little hit of dopamine. Carmen likes to do a pat sometimes after solving things. And I think that's really rewarding as well. We're going to keep going. Now we're going to type, or I'm going to copy because I'm lazy, text again that says full stack curriculum. Okay, we're going to check our code. And this is, I bet we're going to do something to this full stack curriculum in a second. I bet we're going to use 2 HTML tags to turn this into an HTML element. Fantastic. We've got our heading 1 or H1 up here. We're going to make a heading 2 element. I was going to ask if anybody knew why we would have these different numbers. Ooh, I'm going to close it. We need that slash to close it. Yeah, and we see we've got a heading 1, heading 2, and Dan, so we have a heading 1, heading 2, not just to style these, not just to make the text bigger and then bigger but smaller than an H1. But Dan points out that there's semantic importance to this. That in H1, we'll learn more about this later, you should really only have one of those on any given web page. But an H2 is like a second level heading. Yeah, the semantic importance of this text will come with the title. And we're going to talk about semantic HTML a lot. And if you haven't heard this term before, it might be good to go in your notes. Semantic means that this tag or this element or this value we're using holds meaning in itself. And it's super, super useful. This concept of semantic HTML is probably going to be one of two things I yell at you about. We're going to check our code. Everything is fine. I mean, everything would be fine even if it didn't pass. I'm going to copy and paste this over because it says to add below the other 2 lines of text because we want to read our instructions. Learn the skills to become a full stack developer. We're going to check our code and bop along. Okay, so we've learned about how to use our 2 H1 tags to make 1 H1 element. We've learned how to use our 2 H2 tags to make 1 H2 element. Now we're going to use 2 P tags to make 1 paragraph element. And we're going to, here it says to turn this sentence into a P element. Well, how would we do that? Here, I think we need to wrap this text. Okay, we didn't really see much change in the way this was displayed. And that's because by default, if you put some text on a page and you don't add the tags to make it an element, browsers will generally, I think all of them will, try and interpret that as a paragraph, a P element. But here, we want to write good HTML, well-developed HTML, semantic HTML. So we've wrapped in our P element just to do this correctly. We're going to check our code. Things continue to be fine. So this lets us know that there's 6 heading elements. We've seen 2 already, H1, H2, but we could go down to H6 if we wanted to. And they're used to show how important the sections are. Let's add an H3. So here, our H1 is saying, welcome to Free Code Camp. We should only have one H1 on a page. And then under that, this H2 is creating a big section saying, we're looking at the full stack curriculum. Our H3 is going to be a subsection, a child of that H2. Here the H3. And I'm going to go ahead and write the opening and closing tags of my element first before copying and pasting that in. And we're making, so here, let's talk about parents and children really fast. It's not, so this H3 is a subsection of the H2, almost like its daughter or its niece. But here, it sort of belongs in, conceptually, the full stack curriculum H2 section. Yeah, this feels weird, or it might, but maybe it doesn't. Let's keep trying. So we've added, we're going to remember that there's 6. It's pretty rare that you'll use all 6. Let's check our code. It passes in. I'm going to be very clear that I'm not going to write all this code for all of this course. Of course, I'm doing all of it on my own as well. But a big part of what I'm excited in this course is for y'all to get super duper independent. So doing all these on your own, and we'll just do a little bit of the hard parts together. So it says under our H3, we want to create another P element. Okay. Oh, and this is letting us know that, hey, please notice, and when it says please notice, it's good to notice, that each of our headings and the text in our P tag look different. We won't learn about CSS yet. We'll learn about it later in the course. But don't, here we go, I'm already telling you what to do. Please don't use heading tags just to make your text bigger or smaller. So because these these elements carry semantic meaning, they can be really important for folks using assistive technologies. And we'll learn about assistive technologies and accessibility soon. Cool. We're creating another P element. So if you needed heading to say, this is a section, this is a subsection, that's great, but don't let me catch you using these just to style your text size, please. This passes, we can keep going. Okay? So I like about this is it gives you less and less information each time. It says, hey, make me an H3 element that says introduction to CSS. Let's do it. We've got our opening and closing tag. Everything's terrible, but this can't hurt us. Let's bop. I bet. Cool. We're going to add another paragraph element. Everything's easy. I mean, again, if y'all are watching this in 2026, everything's not easy, is it? So here we've got our opening closing tags, that P and P with a slash. Oh, gosh, there's my worst. There's my most active and evil cat. Blink, say hello. He thinks it's dinner time. Sorry, guys. So here we've got a paragraph tag. We're going to check our code. We're almost done. Everything is fine. Everything would be fine if this wasn't working, but, and it's kind of weird to show you a commercial during this. This bootcamp is completely free. There's no way to pay us. It would be weird if there was a way to pay us. And Free Code Camp is completely free. It's in the name. And Free Code Camp is a charity. So please, please, please do not give away money if you don't have money. If you are not working right now, please don't ever spend money you don't have. Y'all need to take good care of yourselves first. But if you find that Free Code Camp and their materials helped you get to a more comfortable place, becoming a supporter is a really, really kind thing to do. They're a charity, so they make all of their money off of contributions, and it makes it so other people can learn as well. I contribute to them in other ways, but I leave these pop-ups so we have a little bit of time to chat and a little sort of, gosh, I hope it doesn't feel like an upsell, but a little prompt to say, hey, if you have the money and if you feel like it, donating is a super cool thing to do. So here, full stack curriculum, HTML, CSS. I bet the next thing it wants is for us to do an introduction to JavaScript. I'm going to copy and paste this over because developers love a lot of things, but one of the things we love is copy and pasting code. Oh, gosh. And this is really, really nice. This is giving us your code didn't pass, but have a little hint. It said, yes. There were more instructions that you didn't even bother looking at. And that's a big problem for me. Cool. A P element as well. JavaScript adds interactivity. I'm going to actually follow all the instructions this time. We're going to check our code. Oh, look at that little pop. So we've gone through this pretty exhaustively. We've gone through step by step, and we won't do this for, I'm going to say any of maybe some CSS. So we're not going to go step by step through all this throughout the course because it's really important for you to learn. But I am going to go step by step through the next part. Let's come back to our notes. A little bit of whiplash. So we're going to debug CamperBot's profile page. Stunning. And I asked some of you earlier. So where do we think the term debugging and bugs came from? And somebody said, oh, these came from punch cards. And yes, this is fantastic. This is really detailed. There was an actual bug inside a machine that prevented it from writing code. So a long, long time ago in actually a land far away from me, back in the US, There were some developers working on a very early computer. And computers a long, long time ago were huge room shaped machines. And at the time, women were programming, almost always women, were programming them using punch cards or wrapped wire cards. And Admiral Grace Hopper, who was a really, really early programmer and really instrumental in making an early programming language, Fortran, happen, found that her program wasn't running. Stuff was terrible and she didn't know why. But when she went through and pulled these punch cards that the code was written on out, she found a bug, a bug inside. And since then, we've been calling errors computer bugs, which I find pretty charming. So, debugging is the act of looking at our code to try and get rid of the errors. And we're going to do a debugging exercise together in just a second. And this is going to be really common. I like that the new curriculum will sometimes give you some code and say, this is broken. Here's some hints about why it's broken. Please fix it. We're also going to be using user stories, and we'll talk about what those are when we look at those. Those are very literally short stories. Those are stories telling you, as a developer, either what you should build, what you should fix, or what you should test. And here, these user stories are going to be telling us what we should fix. If you're building something new, like a new feature on a website or application or a new website, usually these user stories will be based on the perspective of a user. You'll often hear people, not in these tutorial systems, but in the real world, a user story will say something like, as a user, I need to be able to log in using a password before I can access my information. Yeah, so user stories are very literally stories that developers on teams use to stay on the same page about what we're building. Tests. I love tests. I hate tests. Tests are checks, often automatic, sometimes not, but they test or check the code that you're writing or the code that you're debugging to make sure that that code meets specific requirements. I don't always love tests, but learning to work with tests and the error messages they give you is going to be really important as a developer. So I love these. It's not explicitly said here, but I wanted to make in my notes about error messages. Tests, and then later on, some tools and libraries will give you an error message when something's wrong. And we saw that when I forgot to add the P element. Um, these error messages can feel really bad. There's an error, there's a problem, it's broken. The big thing I would like to give you is we're just going to relax. We're going to take this really, really slow. Everything's terrible, but everything's terrible in manageable ways. Staying calm, reading an error message carefully, and if it's an error message that you can search for online, this is going to be a programming superpower. And we hear the term syntax in here, and we'll look at it together. Syntax is how a programming language is written. The syntax of HTML and the syntax of CSS are super different. And we'll have to learn the syntax of each. Because I am a dorky linguist, I like to think of syntax as the vocabulary and the grammar of a programming language. Let's go. And I am going to be super duper lazy. Looking at this, please, can I get you all to yell at me what you think is wrong? So we're looking at the code here in the index.html. I'm even, oh gosh, we're not looking at this at all. My apologies. Let's actually share this. Haha. So this has some problems in it, right? Can you all start yelling at me what those problems are? But while you're yelling these at me, and please, 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 always feel free to yell. Y'all are never bothering me as long as you're polite and respectful to each other and to your instructors, please. Ask as many questions as you want. Tell me when something's wrong. I love it. So our user stories will also tell us what's wrong. Camperbot is trying to use, and Camperbot's sort of our user here. Fantastic. So hello from Camperbot. About, my name is Camperbot and I love learning new things. Cool. Backgrounds and interests, I enjoy solving puzzles. So even before we look at the user stories, this looks weird, right? We're not supposed to use headers just for styling, but this doesn't feel like it's sort of semantically laid out the way it should. And when we look at the code, there's some problems here as well. Oh gosh, Lucia, thank you so much. We get it right here. Say, hey, hey, hey. An H2 tag is a heading element, but the tag we need to be writing is H2, not heading. Stunning. And this is the very first user story as well. And Camperbot is trying to use heading 2 element, but that's not a thing. And you have been so kind to say, hey, let's change the syntax. Yeah, so the syntax is correct. So we've got our user stories up here. We're going to take a deep breath and come all the way down because we're also going to see our tests. And when we check our code, we don't have to have everything fixed at once. When you're coding in the real world, I mean, this is the real world, but when you're coding professionally or on your own projects, you're probably not going to go through and fix every single bug and then run your tests. Running your tests as you go can be a really, really good way to say, I'm on the right track. So we think we might have fixed one bug. Let's check our code. Oh gosh. We have actually passed a lot of tests. So this shows us the tests we wanted to see. So we only have one H1 element. That test passes. Stunning. We should not remove the H1 element, and we haven't. We're safe. Our third test, we should have exactly one H2, and that's the H2 we just fixed. Well, I mean, that's the H2 Lucia just fixed. Thank you very much. And the H2 element should contain the text about. Oh, okay. And here we've got some tests that don't pass yet. That's not a problem. Here, we've got a little bit of a hint. And it's the same hint as here. We should have a paragraph element with the text. My name is Camperbot, and I love learning new things. Okay. Helpfully, ooh, I'm seeing that. Micah was like, ha ha ha, I got you. The syntax. And Mighty Unicorn Dragon, what a fun username to say. Mighty Unicorn Dragon is saying the same thing to say, hey, we have a syntax error on this, that this paragraph tag says PP instead of P. Let's fix it. Huh. Oh gosh, and you know what? I think we have the same syntax error down here at the bottom. Let's fix it so we've got a opening P tag, okay, a closing P tag. Yeah, so I think these should be right. Let's check our code. Oh, we got our tests running. How stressful, not too stressful. I wonder why she's taking a little minute to do this. Well, it's checking our code. Gosh, we're seeing which of ours done. And we can go ahead and say, cool, trying to add 2 paragraphs with the PP tag, but that's the wrong syntax. Oh, terrible. And if we come down in here, we're seeing that our tests saying you should have a paragraph element with the I enjoy solving puzzles. Those tests pass now. Everything is fantastic, but not all of our tests pass. That's okay. So we should have exactly one H3 element on our page. And here, our user story is saying, Camperbot is trying to use an H3 element, but we have a syntax error here. And I think I saw someone, thank you very much. Micah said, hey, and we've got Dan saying as well, this H3 tag is here, but the syntax is wrong. And that's because when we close a closing tag with the slash needs to come before the tag. Okay, so it needs to be an H. And we saw the backgrounds and interests. As soon as we fixed that, we saw, I'm going to cut this. we saw that this paragraph element after it, as soon as it was fixed, the paragraph element went down to the right size. And this could feel really weird. Why would changing the closing tag of the H3, why would that impact what the P element is doing? And I'm going to let you all have a little bit of think about this while I'm going to check our code and see if this passes. I'm going to check our code. And we get that little burst of confetti, which I find incredibly relaxing. Cool. So here, the reason if our H3 element isn't correctly closed, what our browser is going to do is it's going to read this HTML and show it to us in the preview. I'm going to get rid of the instructions for a minute. And what happens is if we don't correctly close this H3 element, I do this a lot, if we forget to close it, it means that it's going to continue to make everything H3 until it's closed. Even though this is a P element right here, your browser said, well, I'm getting two different conflicting instructions. You haven't closed this H3, so I'm going to make everything H3. Oh gosh, this is perfect. This is a very fancy way to say, hey, it isolates implementing the tags only inside the tag. Yeah, if we don't close the H3 tag, if I write some text here, la, 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 it's going to be H3 as well. So we need to isolate what we wanted to happen. Check our code. Still passes. We're still at 100%. Everything's still cool. But what we're going to do is we're going to look at the last two concepts we worked on today. And these are going to be mostly reviewing concepts. Oh, let's come back to the correct tab. So what role does HTML play on the web? Well, I mean, the web wouldn't really exist without HTML. Oh gosh, this is such a super good question. I'm going to save that and we're going to come to it in just 1 second. So I've got a really, really good question. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So HTML, we've talked about it. It's the markup language that we write in our HTML files that users' browsers access in order to show them your web page. The HTML elements written in these HTML files make up the structure and the content found on the web. Oh gosh, we've got someone asking me a question I don't know the answer to, which is if we don't close our H3 tag, is that like an unterminated string literal in Python? Do you know what? I don't really know. Do you know what we could do? Unterminated. Oh. So, oh gosh, I'm so sorry. Let me come here. Oh, and let's make this a little bit bigger. When we get stuck, we can read, what is it? Read, search, ask. And for us, it's read, search, experiment, ask. It's a really good way to do it. Oh gosh, I see another really good question I'm going to save. So I don't know about Python, and this isn't a question that we need to get to right now, but I really, really wanted to just model. I don't know about this. Let's do a really good search. So unterminated string literal is a really specific set of words. I'm going to put quotes around those and add Python, even though I think that's just a Python thing. Let's find, oh, Here we've got a dev community blog. Please go away. Thank you. So, oh, do you know what? I think you might be very, very correct. Python raises this user error, or this error message, which we think are scary. I mean, you all probably don't think error messages are scary. Let me drop this blog post we're looking at in here. And this says, hey, Python will give you this error message, unterminated string literal, when you don't close a string. And we're going to learn more about what strings are later. So I'd say, yeah, it seems a lot like the same kind of error. Sorry, I cheated and snuck in a question early, but just because I wanted to model, hey, if we don't know what something is, we're going to look it up. Everything's scary, everything's stressful, but this, not so bad. So HTML elements written in HTML files make up the structure and content found in the web. We're cool? Yeah. So you can make a website with just HTML and it'll work. It probably won't be very pretty. After learning more HTML, we're going to learn about CSS. I like to think of HTML as the blueprint of your website. So here's the structure. Here's where an image will go. Here's where a heading will go. Great. And then CSS, which we'll learn later, it sets the style rules. It's the interior design of your website apartment. HTML elements are made up of tags that are wrapped in angle brackets. I often call these pointy friends, so please, 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 if you catch me doing that, yell at me. And some of these, but not all of these, have a starting tag and a closing tag with a backslash to form the element. We had a fantastic question. And Matthew was saying, okay, Jess, but why do some tags require, why do some elements require closing tags and why some of them just don't? So just because isn't a very satisfying answer, and just because isn't a true answer. HTML is a programming language. HTML is a markup language that is governed by, so because this needs to work the same everywhere, browsers and users and programmers all need to agree what goes into HTML. And we do this using rules that come from web standards. And there's a ton of history and new elements will get introduced over time. And there's different reasons for different elements, but some of these brand new elements, when they were brand new, just didn't come with opening and closing tags. Sorry that this is a very abstracted way to answer this, but there's a heck ton of HTML elements. So because for historical reasons is going to be my answer, which isn't a very good answer. But makes a good point. Well, that's not standardizing. Standardizing, you're right. I would push back lightly and gently and lovingly and say, standardizing doesn't mean everything needs to be the same all the time. But think of these elements that don't have opening and closing tags. If we're thinking about a language, let's think of them as the irregular verbs. When we're talking about web standards, the standardization we're talking about is that everyone using HTML agrees that this is the way it should be. It's not standard as in it feels the same way, but standard as in we've all come to agree on it. And Brian makes a really good point. He says, well, a lot of these elements, and we're going to talk about them, the elements that don't have opening and closing tags, they don't need something in the middle. So when we looked at a P element, we saw a paragraph element, we saw an opening P, the text that goes inside, and a closing P. That one kind of needs an opening and closing tag. But, and this is really good because we're going to look at image. Image doesn't necessarily, there's not really anything we can put in it aside from the source of where it's pointing. Yeah. And yeah, we've got somebody saying it doesn't enclose text. So we can use an element that doesn't need an opening and closing tag when it doesn't need to have anything in the middle. If we want to remember, the HTML elements that don't need an opening, well, don't need a closing tag. They still need the first tag to start. HTML elements that don't need a closing tag are called void elements. And folks have been really, really helpful to say the image element is a really good example here. With void elements, and I see a whole bunch of proper web developers in here who are going to yell at me, and you're right. People have very strong opinions about this. And my strong opinion is that I don't have a strong opinion. Very strictly speaking, HTML void elements don't always need a closing slash at the end. Yeah, you can include it, and many people think it's best practices or the most correct way to write code, but it probably won't break it. So the image tag is an example, and we're going to look at it down here. It briefly mentioned a code formatter, and a code formatter is a tool that automatically cleans up your code a little bit, usually according to certain rules. And I loved that because we had mine come in and say, well, if we're using an IDE, which we learned about in the last session, these are integrated development environments. These are code editors that have extra tools built in, often extra tools like a code formatter. Would a fancy IDE like VS Code, and I love the word fancy here. I say fancy a lot. I'm not picking favorites, but it's a great way to say this. Would a fancy IDE like VS Code tell us if there were missing tags? The answer here is often yes, if you use different kinds of tools, but fancy IDEs and fancy code editors will also often give us code formatters, or sometimes we hear them called prettifiers, which I think is really pretty. Yeah, and we're going to preview this. We'll talk about it later. Syntax highlighting is one of these sort of extra features. It'll show you, hey, you've created a closing tag, open tag. I'm going to give you the closing tag, or I'm going to highlight where it's not working. Yeah. Matthew's asking, oh, is a code formatter not a linter? You know what? So I'm actually checking. I think that a code formatter and a linter are different, but I'm just looking it up because how are they different? Gosh, I'm not finding a good answer. Cool. Linters often format your code as well, but, oh, and gosh, everybody here who doesn't know what a linter is, we will not use them at all this course. You're safe. You're safe for now. But they'll also go ahead and pick out other problems that are a problem. Yeah, sorry. We've got somebody asking, what is a linter? Cool. They are more advanced checkers, and they do some formatting, but they do some additional things that formatters don't do. Sorry. I'm trying to make sure that you all have tons and tons of information, but linters are something we're not going to use at all on this course. You might want to look them up and take some notes if you're interested, but there are problems that are today problems, there are problems that are next week problems, and there are problems that are the end of the course problems. If you haven't heard of a linter yet, you can throw a linter to end of the course problems. Fantastic. Let's come here. So code formatter is something that will make your code prettier. And actually, I think that, let's come back and let's look at this. So here, I'm going to get rid of my preview as well. We've got our code from when we did our debugging. I'm going to make my code a little messy. I've done this. I've sort of indented this over. I'm going to put the end of my p tag way down here. So nothing bad, but I'm just making this kind of messy, right? So I can actually, I don't know if it'll show up. If I can right click on this, oh heck, if I right click on this, we actually have a formatter in here, format document. I could also put Shift Command F on my computer, and it automatically makes this pretty for us. Yeah, everything's terrible, but this is not so bad. I'm going to come back. All right, stunning. Oh, and we've got Garrett saying, okay, I'm I'm going to bring this discussion about linters to Discord just to make sure folks watching this afterward don't feel like we need to focus on that. I absolutely don't want to yuck your yum and distract y'all because you are sharing really good information, but I don't want to talk too much about something folks absolutely do not need to learn yet, or if at all. And attributes. We're going to learn some more about attributes, but attributes are values, so extra pieces of information that some elements, like image, IMG, you need to give it extra information to make that work. Yeah. And that extra information, that value that is being passed in. And these are just really sort of programmy ways to say the extra information you need to give it. So if I say, please pass in the SRC, the source attribute for this image, I'm going to say, hey, could you please give me the link for where it goes? And actually, I don't love that I've done this. This is a bad example and I'll fix it. What this should say is, we have the example right here. And I'm going to delete the markdown that's in here. I used a different markup language to write my notes, and you don't need to learn Markdown either. If you've learned HTML, it's not hard. If you're already feeling confident with HTML and you want to pick up markup down at a later date, you'll find it much faster to pick up. So here is an image element. We've got our image tag, which we've already learned about, which is a void tag. So it doesn't need a closing tag. It's a void element. So it doesn't need a closing tag. And it's got that backslash at the end to close it. Here, the attribute we have, the source, SRC, points to the URL, the address of where on the web this image that we want to show lives. And we're going to come down and we're going to talk about attributes for a second. Attributes are the values placed in the opening tag of some HTML elements to add additional information to make those elements work. Attributes can be required to make some of these HTML elements work, but there are optional attributes for some of these elements. Let me come up here. So let's look at this together. We've got our opening tag, IMG, which is saying we're making an image element. We don't need to worry about our closing tag at all. It's none of our business. Here, we have, actually, do you know what? Let's come to the interactive editor. So here's where we were. Here's the theory page. And I like this theory page a lot because it has an interactive editor here. Where's my ha 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 ha. So even though this is just theory, it's asking you to do a little bit of work. But we're not going to do it. We're going to do a different thing. Cats. Love cats. Actually, no, let's start at the top. So here we've got an example I've included in your notes. Let's go the rest of the way through the notes. Sorry to jump around. And then we'll come back and we'll play with that interactive element. Because I want to talk to you about something else that's super duper important. And I promise it's important. And that's links. So the internet, the internet existed before the web. But the web, depending on how old or young you are, The web is not very old. The web was invented by Sir Tim Berners-Lee. And his invention was, what if we had digital documents that could have links, connections between them? Everything else came later. I want to put an image in it. I want to have JavaScript to make it do things. I want to have CSS. That's in the future. That's in the future. We're coming way back into the past. And the core concept that Sir Tim Berners-Lee designed the web around is, wouldn't it be cool to have a document that could jump, that could link to another document? And this is one of, I'd argue, the most important concepts of the web. The way we link to things on the web is using the link element, the href tag. And this, these days, lets you link to another web site. It lets you link to a different page on your website, or it can have you jump to a different section on the same page. It's really cool. The href tag, and always think about this as, I like href as the way to say this because it's a heavy sounding tag, right? Href, I always think of it as throwing an anchor. So a link, we start with A, and that's our anchor. And a href is saying, hey, we're going to take that anchor and we're going to throw it. I imagine the href as the chain connecting the anchor. Oh gosh, not everybody is a native English speaker. Do you know what an anchor is, like with a ship? Let me find it. Yeah, so a link has the A as an anchor and the href of like the effort sound of throwing that anchor to the URL that it goes to. The anchor tag, and the URL is an address on the web. Some attributes have a unique syntax. And I'm going to come way, way back up because I saw a really, really good piece of criticism. Oh gosh, someone was asking earlier, hey, on our notes, why does this element have different brackets? That's because I made a mistake. I wrote my notes using a different markdown language, and I accidentally included them in there. I removed them because it's distracting for learners, and I'm going to fix them on your notes right after class. We had a really, really good polite criticism of HTML earlier. I'm going to come right up here, somewhere. So some attributes have unique syntax where they're only used for one element, and you have to learn them. And we've used the checked attribute, and we'll learn more about this on forums. And you might say, that's not standardized though. We'll see the source src in different elements. Why do we have some that are unique syntax and only exist once? And I'm sorry, the answer is for historical reasons and just because. Let's come in and let's look at our interactive editor. So we're here looking at what are attributes and how do they work. And here we've got the basic syntax. Open your tag, say, give me the element that we're going to be using, give me the attribute that needs to be applied, and the attribute is followed by an equal sign, and then in quotation marks, we pass in the value. We give it the value. For a non-void element, void elements exist too, we will close the opening tag and then add a closing tag. So our first example uses the href attribute for our linking element, our anchor element. Yeah? So the A element, also known as the anchor element, this big, heavy element that lets us href and throw to the URL that is the value of the href one. So here, enable the interactive editor and change this. And we can change this to whatever we want. So if I want to say, we've got a couple different things going on here. Let's talk really briefly about links. So here, gosh, that's very big, isn't it? Here, we've got our anchor, our opening angle brackets, our our anchor tag, our href, and this is where we're throwing the link to. And right now it's HTTPS, and we can talk about what that means, but this is links, URLs, web addresses, or links. We'll start with HTTP or HTTPS. And this is just the syntax for URLs. The difference is that the S has a different type of encoding where it's more secure. The S literally stands for secure. Then we've got the colon and a slash, and then www dot, and then the domain name and the section we're going to. Here, I'm gonna say, let's go to the bad website.club. Oh gosh. But we still have a problem. Can anybody see what the problem is with our link now? So while you tell me what's wrong with this link, I'm going to just walk through what we have now still. We've got our opening angle brackets, our anchor tag that we're going to throw using our href attribute, our equal sign, we're saying our, we've got our quotation marks and our URL looks okay. Here we've got an optional attribute as well. We've set the target to blank. Yeah? What is the target to blank going to do? And setting the target to blank is really optional, but what this is doing for us is saying, when you add this optional attribute of target and you set it to blank, just in this specific way with the underscore before, it says, hey, when my user clicks on this link, please open this up. Yeah, y'all all know. Opens in a new tab, opens in a new page, thank you. Yeah. Me can't spell, so fantastic. So we've got our, oh, heck, I left you on the seat, sorry. So we've got our essential, our non-optional attribute, which is our href. But then we've got our optional attribute. If we took away target blank, it means that our link won't open in a new tab, but our link still works. And here, we also have our anchor text. Remember that our A element is our anchor element. And this, gosh, where am I? Heck. Let's make this, gosh. Oh, she's a little broken. That's not a problem. A little broken is still okay. Here, our anchor text should say, we should give our user a hint about what they're going to see. Yeah, now restart this. So here we see our preview for our interactive editor and a user coming to our page, seeing this link, say, oh, if I click this link, I know that it will go to FreeCodeCamp. But we could change, we want to be careful that our anchor text between our opening and closing tag carries semantic meaning. It should make sense to use. If we didn't want to change the link, we could say, hey, this link is going to FreeCodeCamp News. We're going to change the anchor text so that people know where they're going. So here, let's go back to the front. We've got the opening of our HTML tag, our anchor tag, our required href attribute, and then our optional target one. Oh, stressful. Oh, weird. Oh, yeah, sorry. We've got somebody asking, wait, is href isn't just the sound of throwing an anchor. Does it stand for something? And you're absolutely right. It's a uh, hypertext reference. Yeah. Sorry, I was mean to Bruce for saying HTML stands for how to make loveliness. And I'm over here saying the href attribute is the sound of throwing an anchor. I'm even worse. So here, other common attributes, SRC or source, and ALT or alternative text or alternative. So ALT can be added to an image or piece of media, and it adds text description of that image. Can you tell me about why an image, for example, might also want to have text explaining it? Technically speaking, if you're making an image, the SRC, the source attribute, is absolutely essential. You must have it. Technically speaking, the ALT attribute is optional, but I am trying to always be gentle, y'all. If you don't include the ALT for your images, I'm going to fuss at you, okay? So we're going to finish this up, and then we're going to go ahead and close for the day. So please, if you had any questions about these units, or if you had any questions about the material we've looked at so far, please just throw it into the chat and we'll look at it in just a second. And we've got really, really great ones. So folks saying, hey, if your users who can't see, so folks who are visually impaired, they won't be able to see the image on your page, but they'll be able to get that context. And Miss Rachel says, hey, the machine, the extra information that the extra accessibility supports they'll use are called screen readers. We've got somebody else saying, yeah, for people who use screen readers and Canon. And here we've got some other ones as well saying, hey, what if the image is broken and the user can't see it? It still tells you what's going on. And this entire set of practices to say, how do we write HTML? How do we build websites in ways that users with different needs can access them? Absolutely perfect. This is called accessibility, and we're going to come back to it again and again and again. Oof, somebody who's my age says, do you know what? Back in the day when the internet is slower, we also used to be able to see what an image is while it was still waiting to load. And this is actually still very true for folks in low resource environments. If you're someplace where you're only using the web on your phone and it's expensive to get data, I would probably turn images off. For folks with connectivity issues, alt text makes the web more accessible, the same way it does to folks who are visually impaired. So we're looking at this, and here we've got our alt text. Can y'all see if I inspect? Fantastic. And because I'm using a streaming service that's, oh gosh, we can't see it. Because I'm using a streaming service that works best in a specific browser, I'm using a browser that's not my favorite one. But here we've got, we'll just go through this really, really quickly. And don't forget, y'all throw any of the questions you have into the chat while I'm wrapping the rest of this up. But then we'll talk about your solo work before next class. Here, we've got our starting tag saying it's an image. And then we've got our SRC attribute set to this URL. And what this is doing is this is saying, hey, point this image element at this URL. Okay. And here we've got the optional, but not really optional, attribute of alt text, where it says two tabby kittens sleeping together on a couch. And we're going to have someone come and teach us more about writing good alt text. But what I'm going to do is something that I love to do. I am going to break this. So this image isn't loading, and we're seeing this alt text. So even though, as a user, I can't see what the image is, maybe because the server's broken, Maybe because I've turned images off. Maybe something technical. Maybe just accidentally deleted a letter in the URL. It means that users still know, hey, just meant to include a picture of two tabby kittens sleeping together on the couch. Fantastic. So I'm going to just check and see if folks have any questions. Oh, do you know what? I lied. I sorry, that happens a lot. I am going to reshare and talk to you very briefly. So I'm not seeing any questions. So that's very, very chill. What we're going to do is just very, very quickly have a look at what I'd love to ask you to try and do for solo work before next time. So if you've got the time, after the session, please do the debugging for the pet adoption page. And then if I could ask you to read and take notes on what's the role of a link element in HTML. Oh, and this is going to preview CSS. How do we link to style sheets? So the style sheet might sound a little weird. Read it and take notes and record any questions you might have. Also, we're to learn about boilerplate, so please read this and take notes on your own. What is boilerplate and why it's important? And then, sorry, I'm really into languages. We're going to learn about UTF-8 character encoded and why it's important. So UTF, it's a standards thing again, but we'll learn about why it's important and why we've got to do it. I don't see any questions to grab in the chat, but if I've missed a question, I'm sorry. Or if something occurs to you later, we will joyously see you in the Discord. And you can get to the Discord by going to discord.gg/capital KVU little m VXA. I hope you all have the easiest possible morning, night, or hopefully end of your day so you get to relax. I'll let you go. I'll see you tomorrow, and you all will joyously not see me on Thursday or Friday because you'll get to see the magnificent and talented Carmen. Thank you very much. Bye, team.